inspired by the philosophy of Alan Watts. Before we dive in, what follows is an exploration of the strangeness of reality, inspired by the timeless wisdom of Alan Watts. Let us unravel the illusion of form and the mystery of the present moment. The text, the primary reason why certain individuals are drawn to philosophy, and indeed, the reason I became a philosopher myself, is that ever since I was a young boy, I possessed an unshakable feeling that existence itself was peculiar. I mean, here we are. Isn't that undeniably strange? Of course, it is strange. But what do you mean by strange? Well, it is that which differs from the even. What is odd stands out. What is even lies flat. Yet, you cannot perceive the outstanding without that flat background. Here is this phenomenon standing out. It is odd. Each one of you is odd, strange, unique, particular, and distinct. But how do we understand what we mean by those terms, except in contrast to a background of something even, something undifferentiated like empty space? Consequently, you develop this philosophical itch. You begin to scratch your head and ponder, why is this the case? After a while, you realize that why is a meaningless question, so you switch to asking how. This inquiry leads you into science and other forms of investigation. You want to understand? What is it? I mean, this happening, this thing we call existence. What is it? If you ask that question long enough, it suddenly strikes you that even if you could answer it, you wouldn't possess the terminology to express the answer. When we investigate the properties of nature, we do find answers, but they are always described in terms of particular structures, forms, and patterns. These can be measured, and their behaviors can be predicted. However, when I want to ask, what are the forms made of? Meaning, what is it fundamentally? We cannot conceive of a way to answer. To do so, we would need a class of all classes. When you ask, what is it? It is akin to asking, is you is or is you ain't? Are you animal, vegetable, or mineral? Are you a Republican or a Democrat? Male or female? Christian, Jew, Hindu, or something else? We always classify to provide an answer to, what is it? Classification requires distinguishing an inside group from an outside group. But what we truly want to know is, what is the group of all groups? Since we cannot imagine what the outside of everything would be, we cannot answer the question. Therefore, physicists eventually abandoned the quest for stuff and gave us a description of the universe entirely in terms of form, the pattern, not the substance. People ask, what is the pattern made of? But you cannot ask that. There is no answer. What happens is that when you turn up the magnification of the microscope, all stuff resolves into form. It becomes articulate. You know, a carpet looks like some sort of material, but view it under a microscope, and you see the crystalline structure of the nylon or whatever it comprises. You ask, what are those crystals made of? Fine, turn up the volume, and you find molecules. Turn it up further, and you find waves. We instinctively think the waves must be waves of something, but of course, they are not. We find that substance or stuff totally vanishes. We then ask, does it matter? What does that phrase mean? Does it matter? Means, is it important? Or in other words, does it measure up? The word matter comes from the Sanskrit root matra, which means to measure. From this root matra, proceeding into Sanskrit, we derive the word maya. Maya is generally translated as illusion, although it also signifies magic or creative power. The word illusion itself, if we switch over to Latin, comes from ludere, meaning to play. Let us pretend that we matter. You see, the world is a musical phenomenon. Good music never refers to anything except the music itself. You don't ask the composer, what do you mean by this melody? What is it intended to express? You just listen. That is the meaning. Giraffes are giraffing. Trees are treeing. Stars are starring. Clouds are clouding. And rain is raining. If you don't understand, look at it again. And people are peopling. We notice that all these sucknesses appear and disappear. They keep changing. They come and go. But if you get hung up on your particular form, you create a problem. I have to alter the language slightly here, because your form creates a duality, whereas in truth, you are your form. You are what you are doing now. However, you think, for some strange reason, I must make this continue as long as possible. Therefore, you believe you have an instinct to survive. The only thing anyone can agree upon today regarding ethical and moral problems is that we ought to survive. Consequently, certain forms of conduct have survival value and others do not. But when you say to yourself, you must go on living, you place yourself in a double bind. You are commanding a process that is essentially spontaneous, that it must happen. The basic form of the double bind imposed upon all children is, you are required to do that, which is acceptable only if you do it voluntarily. So, when we tell ourselves, you must go on, the reason is that we are not living in the eternal now, where reality actually resides. We are constantly thinking that the satisfaction of life will arrive later. Don't kid yourself. Which is to say, only suckers place their hope in the future. Value the present. If this perspective shifted your thinking today, make sure to support the channel. Hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the nature of reality. See you in the next one.